This is about more than Flint, Michigan. This is about more than Flint, Michigan's water crisis. This is about. There's too much reverb. Someone asked me what reverb is. I'm gonna go like this. I'm gonna turn down the reverb a little bit. There. You see how it goes away, but I'm gonna put a little bit there. A little bit. Oh, before what's presidential landscape theater stayed trapped. Lost Wave remembers here all gather through rap. Dakota Pipeline, Flint, Michigan spark. The blackest night appears, light bearing, dare to peer hard. We lost to blacktop legions. We need to bear change. The reeds to correlation, yet not let gather gain. We lost in revolution, let not know the means how. Train. What plays our games each one, but not its one. See native drum. Let way not let be seen, and our known become. See native drum. To seize the way not let realized. We train, thou wilt be done. See native drum. Let correlation sea of eyes become. See native drum. See, before this nation's founding, terror systems already entrenched. See how that's not understood. By losses to internation sciences forced campuses, only let realized. Indifference and engineering of indifferences. Perpetual to terror methods, juxtaposing its needs to lies to all area, blamed on other reasons, categorically, systemically, in relationship to terror methods that force negative value nature progression, hurt conviction nature reactions, blaming the actual causes of this being a terror method shared, a terror method, a criminal enterprise shared as the enemy of nations, but not sourced by one, and in relationship to how criminal enterprises were originally only let realized juxtaposed. Internation criminal enterprise juxtaposed with only let realized terror criminal internation agencies that were entrenched here and throughout the world, for example, teaching that the world was flat in relationship to teaching that there were peace in relationship to natures of terror. That were, in other words, that's all they understood that by themselves, that hurt evidence fabrication natures, only having to realize, having to blame, to name their enemy, not understanding how. This is tied to them with the logic captive being told to blame it on radical Islam. These are movements with our own nation's education too, sabotaging our reception of our own nation's education because it requires understanding how we negotiated with terrorism, how we still do. So and how this is a method that knows we're going to blame it on companies or we're going to blame it on the branches, which have juxtaposed roles with it, telling lies for their own reasons, trained to, and per everything in relationship to this, making our stewards have motivations and needs to cover up lies, and sharing needs to get away with it in relationship to what only let hurt, indifference, nature, progressions, cultivated from a base of terror, propagated for this, and to keep anything that would come up like James Madison's plan lost in the long run. So this is not about a pipeline company, but it's connected to it because it's connected to the legal nature. So what they want with our fact treatments is to stay physical enemies with fact treatments. In other words, incapable of seeing the enemy's juxtaposed, the enemy interests in organizations that are not physically present because they're in their criminal insidiousness natures, having their lies and delusions juxtaposed to other people's needs to tell the same lies, and say, in other words, to perpetuate the same um, ignorance and same lies to prevent the laws and to exploit the laws stayed this way. In other words, not just the law, the active relationship to nature, which even before the pipeline was coming, and while measuring two laws to all the arrays of opinions with all force physically competing sides, tool breaching nature, her conviction nature progressions, and reactions to, in relationship to terror impositions with competition's relationship to energy, in relationship to a base of only let realized, justified, captive human value nature systems and standards, which we have forced claim to be business first. In our religious, our original losses. No, and one thing before the end this, I want to keep making a real long video, but one of my other videos I mentioned in the American Revolution that they cheered us for revolution. At the same time, I mentioned all nations were only realized as hurt conviction natures, evidence fabrication natures, engineering of indifferences, and pseudo-education. So most people didn't understand, but what they understood was because of the relationship of religion as a counter to terror sciences that made this nature. In other words, this is in relationship to internation policing natures too that they're gonna be blaming other nations and individuals and groups and things like that with business and with their juxtapositions with them and with the criminal enterprises, blaming real organized crime on lies and delusions juxtaposed to all different other natures of it because of it criminally legalized. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not police. This is what religions are about. For correlation means to demonstrate. Also, the needs to demonstrate what criminal. Teach and understand what criminal insidiousness is. In relationship to natures of organized crime not understood. Relationship to motivations for array of opinion natures to the same ends of evil. This is connected to the odds with Flint, Michigan's water standards and treatments of it in relationship to value nature systems too, throughout the country and throughout the nations. This is why the nations have homes that are not built better than they were forced by terror laws before we had cars. We have value nature systems. Everything is everyone's evidence fabrication nature measured in relation to these points. All the branches, all the Native Americans, all the opinion natures in relationship to treatments of, in other words, top down explaining it. It's getting attached to it's leaving forsaken the denatured landscape before this not realized. When you have a moving water source, you can bring it real deep. You can make it so what it was denatured not to let realized, which are clean freshwater resources. They're not captive by internation, force, police, value nature system, captive, terror, with influence, with uncharged influences, criminally legalized influences in relationship to overtly criminalized ones, juxtaposed with systemic evidence fabrication, systemic witness fabrication, systemic indifference nature, and indifference in engineering, tactical to methods, juxtaposed with our treatments of everything. Even, in other words, even willfully wanting and needing and trying to force forcing the presidents to have the same kind of fact treatments that the media has to, not by accident, because they can't. In other words, they have to tell lies reliant upon a nature of logic in relationship to moral indifference, is it hurt, conviction, nature, progressions, and all kinds of treatments that are real rushed too, with systemic sequence, evidence sequence shifting, which is the first problem too with Native American rights, where they get isolated into concept containment because with the American landscapes forsaken, and where that causes negative value nature progressions in relationship to all the tools by left unrealized. Well, just because we're invested this way, all we have to do is realize it captive, and then no one goes down. We just go up. People say, and I'm not the only one who said that before. People see it, but this is correlation. Or correlation's not being let by predatory, offensive, sequence shifting, and evidence fabrication nature branches of government, predatory litigation natures, predatory incomplete legal nature, opinions only let realized, juxtaposed, and then that self-defended juxtaposed to opinion natures only let realized, to the maintenance of shared sensibilities with treatments of issues, as her conviction natures, as shared indifferences to it, blaming it on lies and blaming it on delusions, as reaction natures, as measured tool breaching functions, only let realized. People start trying to come out of that, they're not working with other people in the eyes of group mass serial killer pathology, for example, in relationship to justifications of slavery, that in her conviction, evidence fabrication nature, pseudo education summaries of that, when it was internation police that did this, and they did it with the terror laws to have it perpetually blamed on lies and delusions, have this measured. We have all kinds of interests for people to pretend lies. And we have systemic evidence fabrication. We have simultaneous intercommunity slander, captivations of the nature of the political parties, moving to platform and with respect for emotions before facts, with respect for people's guises unchallenged in the face of facts. This is why we have laws that you're supposed to be able. There's a requirement when you know about law, you're supposed to be able to report it. But we have a system. We have the phenomenon of left being sub-statutes that are of a nature with groups that are systemically putting lies that are not even recorded. They're just putting experts to tell lies and pretend fake conversations, fake witnesses, systemically, and then using that as evidence. So we have predatory hearsay evidences being used systemically in conjunction with evidence fabrication, systemically coordinated by interpolice forms families, and for their relationships to drugs through time, in relationship to my video when I was a freshman, in relationship to confessions about this, relationship to all kinds of federal criminals who had ties with police forms involved with international placements of money and pension thieves that had kids in my grade and had connections to other ones associated with them. It's like they have slander and methods of having people defend conversations and slanders of other, and even play roles with witness fabrication, systemic witness fabrication, and maybe they probably don't even realize the extent of it. I mean, and then they make even threats online, the official people, to force responses and then to lie about the responses. So we have area people associated with Facebook with related confessions, related to all these natures of crime juxtaposed with police that affect confessions from strangers and in relationship to a demonstrable method of terror with indifferences that are only existent not by accident. These are maintained indifferences need to lie in blind respect for the name or the concept of police, where it's for sharing policing of our commodity force landscape with terror. So we've been negotiating with terrorism since founding. This is tied to the systemic drug problems, the systemic um, problems with money, like with exploitations of women, justified because they say women need money, so they have stripper clubs to all areas, and they have men who only realize as fraud by these natures of policing training, fake morality in guises used by adults directed needs to cover up life progressions that no one realizes through time, using intercampus connections, predatory defenses of us, under that we're reached, which as the guys, we have predatory linguistic tricks where they blame people for what they're doing, so the facts are that for example, with Dakota, the pipeline was already denatured. The landscape was already denatured. No one was ever led to realize soils that weren't packed down, denatured, tactically, taken from the beneficial fungi and bacteria and life crops that were original to this landscape before it was denatured to force everyone contained to perpetually captive, force share terror policing. Terror policing, not just overtly in relationship to the narratives with facts recorded, but they're using experts to pretend conversations to forge names, and even for 9/11 they faked witnesses' names, and they refuse to have people follow the laws by pretending people are making things up that are recorded. Too, in relationship to natures of child abuse tied to confessions with a couple of people associated with Facebook policing in Weathersfield, in relationship to other police forms involved with them, with narratives that I tried to report related confessions online in different spots. For example, before they arrested a state police woman for prostituting her husband, for pimping her husband and hookers against their wishes with drugs. In other words, probably associated with these gangs. So in other words, before they did arrest, and with that, they have recorded proofs of them spreading, to discredit people, spreading lies with the papers, telling lies behind the back of people, not telling the paper to run stories with hearsay evidence, not only hearsay evidence, categorically written fraud evidence, and then they don't let them respond. So in other words, they break the law overtly, not letting people report recorded threats and confessions, and then at the same time, they say other unchallenged, and they're telling lies on the street while they're using predatory hearsay in the courts, and worse than that, they're using criminal categorically arranged evidence fabrication, categorically arranged witness fabrication, shifting narrative police reports with charges but no written justifications, and threats demonstrating awareness of fabricated police reports, and in those systems directing people to pretend they don't realize by having the conversation pass through different people, not letting people speak, and then having them put to fake conversations, fake body language, because then you can't go back and tell the truth. You can't say, well, I don't know what that was, light in my eye. I thought it was something, but the other day it was something. You can't go back and say the truth. There's an evidence for, there's a conviction cycle that is murderously even tied to serial killer stuff. See, but no one will acknowledge stuff online or anywhere in writing because everyone was already confined to needs to hide life aggressions with roles with it, with so many people involved with this, which is how which is exactly how they're organized, cultivated, propagated the worst natures of crime to our area, the motivations of it, other than they claim them to be, especially when they claim them to be mental illnesses, because of the relationship of the patients with the doctors with the drug dealing, and with justifications of the street, like this person has cancer. They have those kind of narratives with the street, with the police forums, and they say, but this is connected to methods that are in relationship to systemic evidence fabrication, evidence witness fabrication, and terror roles, with medicine still juxtaposed with terror database relationships, still left uncharged for the nature of organized crime that was before this nation was founded, already entrenched here, and was and is our obligation per James Madison, Marbury versus Madison, to reveal through correlation. So they have both political candidates afraid, per the fraud nature, only realized to stewardships of our agencies or our legal natures. In other words, proofs with correlation, without attaching all the lies and delusions and differences. That are self-defended they can only justify themselves in court contexts where they're evidence sequencing, or they're hurting, or they're attaching lies and delusions to morality judgments and to facts treatments. They can't do it in the public. They can't. In other words, they're forcing negotiations behind doors because all sides are telling lies in relationship. All sides are roles, as tools, evident breaching nature functions in relationship to all that left uncharged. That's why we don't have James Madison understood his counter extortion of our founders understood. Their forced theater glorified. Criminal insidiousness narratives needed. In other words, justifications of lies needed. And maintained blamed on other people's need to tell those lies. So we have fake prejudice still for the nature of industries and of needs to get away with lies in context of legal context, all kinds of systemically. Each branch is a retreat nature reaction to spot as trained, self-defending, as a hurt evidence fabrication nature, as indifference natures, of an engineering not by accident, because it's the only way everyone's trained. In relationship to terrorists, no one could understand because they trained to put sense impression before actual proper fact treatments, which is proper treatment of correlation, which is what we know is true always. But what we have such important things as the environment and not being left in active relationship to what only needs and requires water that was put underground, soil conditions and seeds that are no longer and means to them that private industry, not by accident, cannot make. Where our nations are in a common trap with a common enemy. And that's why the nations have, for example, correlation understands this is why the same styles of homes, not even as good as that were forced by terror laws that hurt you and your family for even discussing building anything safer or better outside of forced terror international police monitor databases. They didn't just have how many people people had counted, which colonists were in what spot, which people were made property and stuff like that. This was to have us stay us as we have. The Legion waits, we Legion train, who'll try a job. Gain to gain the gain again. Who'll thrive. to correlation C. With correlation C is the one that lasts. That's it. Yet the castle weighs ills. Earth's value fleets. Stay retreats. Claim forward lies. Not let it. Guys, worse, we're breached. Let's all rehearse. Flint, Michigan to spark, to pipeline first. 2-route highway. Whisper to the hangman as his fears. The way not remembered now appears.